Ever wondered what your favorite actor's sexual orientation was? What if we told you that some of your favorite screen legends were gay? In today's video, let's find out the top 10 gay closet cases of Hollywood's golden age. Number 1. Anthony Perkins. Anthony Perkins, best known for his iconic role as Norman Bates in the thriller Psycho, led a complex personal life that included both heterosexual and homosexual relationships. Despite being married and having 2 children, Perkins allegedly engaged in several affairs with men during his lifetime. One of his most notable romantic relationships was reportedly with actor Tab Hunter. After Perkins passed away in 1992 at the age of 60 due to complications from his illness, Charles Weinkauf wrote the book Split Image: The Life of Anthony Perkins, which delved into the intricacies of Anthony Perkins and the challenges faced by gay actors in Hollywood during the mid-20th century. One of the central themes of the book is the closeted life led by many gay actors. It portrays the secrecy of arranged dates with starlets for magazines and constant fear of being exposed by scandalous publications. Perkins, like many others, had to maintain a facade of heterosexuality in order to protect his career. The book also reveals the tumultuous relationships Perkins had with men during this period. It describes encounters in Times Square, gay porno theaters, arranged dates with starlets to maintain appearances, and the careful balancing act that Perkins and others had to perform in order to keep their private lives hidden. One wouldn't exactly blame Perkins for hiding who he was, because at this time, homosexuality was not embraced in Hollywood, and coming out in the 50s or 60s would have undoubtedly spelled the end of his career, and Perkins was determined to achieve stardom. Despite what friends and family must have assumed regarding his marriage to Barry Berenson in 1973, the marriage appeared to be more than a showbiz sham, with the couple's 2 sons to show for the union. By all accounts, Perkins was a devoted husband and father. Prior to no knowledge of the reason for his death, Split Image followed a 1990 National Enquirer story that broke the news of Perkins's battle with AIDS, which ultimately led to his death in 1992. Number 2. Richard Pryor. In February 2018, Jennifer Pryor, the widow of the legendary comedian Richard Pryor, made headlines by confirming that her husband had had an intimate affair with the iconic actor Marlon Brando during the 1970s. Pryor addressed this revelation in response to comments made by Quincy Jones during an interview with Vulture. Jones confirmed Brando's involvement with numerous high-profile men, including Pryor. Jones said, "He'd F anything, anything. He'd F a mailbox. James Baldwin, Richard Pryor, Marvin Gaye." These comments sparked public interest and discussion about the relationships Brando had had during his lifetime. Jennifer Pryor corroborated Jones's statement, affirming that Richard Pryor had never hidden his sexuality from their circle of close friends. In a response to TMZ, Jennifer mentioned that Pryor had documented his relationships with men in his diaries. She also made a lighthearted comment about the 1970s drug culture, saying, "It was the 70s. Drugs were still good, especially Quaaludes. If you did enough cocaine, you'd F a radiator and send it flowers in the morning." This comment reflected the freewheeling spirit of the era, and how Jennifer and Richard Pryor lived as a married couple in the early 1980s, and again in 2001, with their marriage lasting until Pryor's passing in 2005. It's clear that with the kind of support Jennifer gives to Richard, no matter what he was, only 2 people who had such mutual understanding could pull that off. Number 3. Raymond Burr, who played Perry Mason in the wildly popular television show Perry Mason, and later in Ironside, lived a secret gay life in Hollywood when such a revelation would destroy a career. Burr met the man who would be his life partner in 1960. Raymond Burr was a prominent figure in American television during the 50s and 60s, after gaining fame for his role as Perry Mason, a brilliant defense attorney who never lost a case. In 1948, Burr married Isabella Ward, but their marriage was short-lived and ended in divorce. And after this time, Raymond refused to settle down with anyone. As much as he refused, he avoided it entirely. Burr invented a biography for himself that included a wife and son who died, and used his busy schedule as a way to explain why he wasn't married. But Burr and his partner, Robert Benavides, had a relationship for 35 years that was secret to most of the world, except for a handful of close friends. It was during the production of Perry Mason in 1960 that Burr met fellow actor Robert Benavides, and the 2 actors formed a deep and enduring bond, remaining together until Burr's death in 1993. While Burr often referred to Benavides as his business partner, it seemed their relationship extended far beyond a professional partnership. Burr and Benavides purchased land together in the 1980s and embarked on a venture that would see them establish a vineyard in California's Sonoma County. Their partnership was not just limited to business, but was also a romantic and lifelong commitment throughout his career. Burr took an unconventional approach to handling questions about his personal life, particularly regarding his sexuality at a time when being openly gay in Hollywood was often stigmatized and detrimental to one's career. He chose to create a fabricated narrative to conceal his homosexuality, and when one wonders why he doesn't remarry, and a reporter reminds him he has no one to return home to, he says, "It's a good thing because I'm working 18 hours a day and sometimes don't come home from the studio at all." Burr often slept at the studio instead of going home. And this makes his affair easy, because seeing him and Robert together in the studio could easily suggest they are working together. Even a fictional deceased son and wife were part of a strategy to deflect attention from his personal life and maintain his public image, and it cannot be said that any woman was exactly seen romantically with Raymond. Despite the need to create a facade, Burr was known as a likable individual in the industry, and he found happiness in his long-term relationship with Benavides, their partnership both personally and professionally. Number 4. Clark Gable. During his early years in Hollywood, Gable had multiple relationships, including a marriage of convenience to Josephine Dillon, an acting coach who claimed she would make an act out of him. Gable later claimed that that marriage was never consummated. Despite being married 5 times and having 2 children, Gable was notorious for his reputation as a ladies' man, often pursuing relationships with Hollywood starlets. However, rumors circulated about Gable's sexual preferences, suggesting he may have been willing to engage in encounters with men for career advancement. One notable same-sex encounter is reported to have occurred between Gable and actor William Haynes. Haynes was openly gay in his personal life, and an incident occurred in 1938 during the filming of Gone with the Wind. George Cukor, who was a close friend of Haynes, was working on the film. At a party, a friend of Cukor reportedly exclaimed, "Oh, George is directing one of Billy's old tricks," referring to Gable's previous involvement with Haynes, and when word of this remark reached Gable, he was said to have been outraged and refused to return to the set until Cukor was replaced as director. Gable's first possibly homosexual relationship is said to have occurred during his time with a roving acting troupe, when he was romantically involved with actor Earl Larimore. He also had a close relationship with actor Rod Lauro while working on the film Forbidden Paradise, which could also be interpreted as a homosexual relationship. During the mid-1930s, William Faulkner, the renowned writer, befriended Gable, and Faulkner, along with Ben Watson, reportedly hunted with Gable, suggesting a close bond between the men. While Gable was known to have had relationships with both men and women, David Brett, a biographer, labeled him as bisexual because of his involvement with individuals of both genders. In later years, Gable had a close confidant and companion in Ben Maddox, a syndicated journalist who played a role in protecting Gable's secrets. In spite of his numerous affairs and marriages, Gable was famously wed to actress Carole Lombard, whom he considered the love of his life. Gable's final film, The Misfits, saw him forming an unlikely friendship with gay co-star Montgomery Clift. Number 5. Cary Grant. Cary Grant's sexual tastes have been a subject of debate and rumor. Grant and Randolph Scott met in 1932 on the set of Hot Saturday. The duo began to cohabit and live together in a mansion affectionately nicknamed Bachelor Hall in the Los Feliz section of Los Angeles for 12 years. Despite his public image as a suave and debonair ladies' man, rumors about Grant's relationship with men circulated within the Hollywood community. During an interview with Barbara Walters in 1986, Grant made a groundbreaking statement about his sexuality, saying, "Everyone says I'm gay, and I guess I am, but I don't really know." This admission was remarkable for its time and contributed to more open discussions about sexuality in Hollywood. The relationship between Scott and Grant raised eyebrows in Hollywood. During the 1930s, they even posed for fan magazines and were featured as budding movie stars. There are so many pictures of them, looking so handsome and happy together, that their affair appears to be a very appealing, very well-documented truth. Although other male stars of the 1930s shared homes, James Stewart and Henry Fonda, Errol Flynn and David Niven, none had whole publicity campaigns built around their relationship. This is one reason why modern commentators often assume that Grant and Scott were lovers rather than roommates. Biographer Charles Hyam highlighted how the lonely heart, a biography of Grant, contributed to decades of rumors about his sexuality. Hyam suggested that J. Edgar Hoover may have fallen in love with the book's author, John Eliot, and tried to protect him. Hyam and Eliot's conclusions in the book suggested that Grant's homosexuality was more pronounced in the early part of his life, while Grant's behavior appeared more heterosexual in the latter part of his life. At this point, he seemed more concerned with being true to himself, regardless of his sexual orientation. Be it gay or straight, he hoped people would pay attention to him for who he was, rather than his sexual preferences. Number 6. Montgomery Clift. The four-time Academy Award-nominated actor maintained a private personal life that kept his dating life out of the scandal papers. Unlike many of his Hollywood peers, Clift resided in New York, shielding his personal life from public scrutiny throughout his career. Apparently, Clift was linked to Elizabeth Taylor in a seemingly will-they or won't-they relationship. But Hollywood insiders were aware of rumors surrounding Clift's preferences which were not strictly straight. Debbie Reynolds in her memoir recalled seeing Clift and Taylor engaged in intimate behavior, noting that Clift had both boyfriends and girlfriends. She said, "Even though Monty had boyfriends as well as girlfriends, it was obvious that he and Elizabeth had been intimate. Elizabeth could seduce any man, gay or straight." The film Making Montgomery Clift takes a different perspective on the actor's life, sifting through a vast family archive to present an alternative narrative. Jack Larson recalled Clift's carefree nature and mentioned that Monty was not worried about being gay. Larson emphasized that Clift had a great sense of humor and was quite different from the public's perception. In a taped phone call with Monty's elder brother Brooks, their mother, Ethel Fogg Anderson, casually mentioned that Monty had identified as homosexual from a very early age, perhaps 12 or 13. Even in his on-screen roles, Clift was known to push boundaries. For example, in the 1948 film Red River, he and John Ireland engaged in daringly flirtatious scenes with innuendo. Clift was less closeted compared to some of his gay contemporaries in Hollywood like Rock Hudson, and he was comfortable being himself. Throughout his Hollywood career, Clift remained an outsider, opting for single-picture deal rewriting dialogue and commuting between New York and Hollywood. He lived modestly in a tiny New York apartment, adhering to a simple diet and spending his time reading literature and history. Number 7. Rock Hudson. Like many gay actors, Rock Hudson led a double life throughout his career, concealing his homosexuality until his death from AIDS in 1985 at the age of 59. Hudson definitely had a swell time in Hollywood as an all-American screen icon, with starring roles in films like Giant, alongside Elizabeth Taylor, Pillow Talk with Doris Day, and many other hits. His legacy is also enveloped in the revelation of his AIDS diagnosis, which helped raise awareness of the disease. In a 1983 interview, Hudson candidly discussed his time working with James Dean on Giant, stating that he didn't particularly like Dean personally, because Dean believed Hudson was hypocritical in maintaining a heterosexual facade in public while privately making advances toward him. Despite a 3-year marriage to Phyllis Gates in the 1950s, insiders in Hollywood were aware of his true orientation. However, the marriage lasted only 3 years before ending in divorce. Gates later claimed that she'd been deceived and had no idea that Hudson was gay all along. To be fair, this statement is sort of skeptical, given that many in Hollywood, from bit players to assistants, were well aware of Hudson's true orientation. Their conversation was recorded by a private detective named Fred O'Tash, hired by Gates to investigate Hudson. Her suspicions were initially aroused after Hudson took a Rorschach test. This incident, and many more secrets about Hudson's life, have come to light in a documentary titled Rock Hudson: All That Heaven Allowed. Hudson's personal life, known to friends and acquaintances, contrasted sharply with the tabloid narratives presented to the American public. He was known as a manager, engaging in relationships with young and attractive men. Number 8. Spencer Tracy. Despite his professional success, Spencer Tracy's personal life was marked by intriguing rumors surrounding his sexuality, which he may have kept hidden due to his Roman Catholic faith. His faith is also a factor to which his estranged marriage to Louise Treadwell, which produced 2 children, never made the couple divorced. On the other hand, Tracy gained a reputation in Hollywood as a hard-partying star and was romantically linked to starlets such as Ingrid Bergman and Eddie Lamar. However, the most compelling speculation surrounds Tracy's alleged long-term relationship with actor John Derek. There are also claims that his relationship with the legendary Katharine Hepburn was carefully managed by the studio. As it appeared that Tracy swung along with boy, male, and females, This begs the question, was Spencer Tracy bisexual? While some may argue that his sexual orientation doesn't matter, writer Amy Fine Collins delved into this topic in the April issue of Vanity Fair, revealing insights from the late Richard Gulley, who was an assistant to Jack Warner and a well-connected figure in Hollywood. Gulley's casual mention of Tracy's sexuality in the article stirred media attention and reactions. Hepburn herself was reportedly upset about the claims, and Tracy's daughter Susanna Tracy dismissed them as absurd. Tracy was a complex individual marked by occasional bouts of deep depression. Tracy also battled alcoholism and once infamously trashed a film set during a late-night visit. Yet when you watch Tracy on screen, his personal struggles vanish, and he becomes the character he portrays. Humphrey Bogart said, "Spence is the best we have because you don't see the mechanism at work." Number 9. James Dean. James Dean engaged in intimate relationships with both women and men. Dean tragically passed away at the young age of 24 in 1955, and millions still remember him throughout his life and beyond. Rumors and speculation have swirled around his sexuality with no definitive answers regarding his identification. Since the 70s, several books have attempted to shed light on the private life of this actor. One of such books is The Real James Dean, written in 1975 by Jonathan Gilmour, a close friend of Dean's. In the book, Gilmour claimed that he and Dean engaged in intimate encounters. However, despite these accounts, Dean's sexuality remains a subject of ongoing debate and uncertainty. Publicly, Dean dated several women, including actresses Barbara Glenn, Pierre Angeli, and Ursula Andress. However, it's widely acknowledged that he was also secretly involved with men, and when questioned about his sexuality, Dean responded, "No, I am not a homosexual, but I'm also not going to go through life with one hand tied behind my back." However, one of the significant relationships that's come to light is his connection with William Bast. Bast, who was also Dean's roommate, later admitted to sexual experimentation with Dean. Bast described their relationship as complex, and it's been suggested that it was somewhat incestuous. Elizabeth Taylor, his co-star, made a public statement, suggesting that Dean had confided in her about being sexually abused by a priest after his mother's death. Darwin Porter also alleged that Dean had a sadomasochistic relationship with actor Marlon Brando, while the director of Rebel Without a Cause, Nicholas Ray, stated that Dean was bisexual. Aside from the speculations, there's no true assurance of his true sexual orientation. Nevertheless, Dean's enduring legacy has earned him the title of the male gay icon of all time, according to the Gay Times Readers Awards. Number 10. Marlon Brando. Even after 3 marriages during his life, rumors have swirled about Marlon Brando's sexual preferences. Many have suggested that Brando may have been bisexual, and one of the most persistent rumors was his supposed affair with James Dean. Allegations in Darwin Porter's biography, Brando Unzipped, suggested that Brando had intimate relationships with Hollywood legends, including Cary Grant, Montgomery Clift, and Sir John Gielgud. In a 1976 interview with a French journalist, Brando openly acknowledged his experiences with homosexuality, stating, "Sexuality is so much in fashion, it no longer makes news. Like a large number of men, I too have had homosexual experiences, and I am not ashamed." In a surprising revelation, musician Quincy Jones claimed that Marlon Brando and Richard Pryor had been involved in a sexual relationship. Following the interview, Pryor's widow, Jennifer Lee, also confirmed the claim. In the book James Dean, Tomorrow Never Comes by Darwin Porter and Danforth Prince, a claim is made that Brando engaged in a dominant submissive S&M relationship with James Dean. According to the authors, while Dean was emotionally invested in the relationship, Brando was more interested in the idea of toying with Dean's submissive nature. Brando was also friends with James Baldwin, who some say he was in an intimate relationship with. In a 1990 interview, Brando expressed great admiration for Baldwin, saying, "If you wish to ask me what I cared about most now, if you ask me to state what was important or lasting, it would have to be that I walked and sat and dreamed next to a man named James Baldwin." According to Porter, Cary Grant and Brando have also been involved intimately, and suggests that is another of Brando's conquests. It is worth noting that Porter's reputation is built on exposing homosexual relationships in Hollywood. If you like this video, do not forget to share and subscribe. Also, let us know in the comments what gets your votes as the worst gay closet cases of Hollywood's golden age.